Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Buccieri, the director of Publicity at Copper Canyon Press, and I'm coming to you live from Brooklyn. You are watching our new interview series, Line Break, which goes off the page and into the homes and minds of our beloved poets. I've always really had the dream of seeing more poets represented on screen, talking shop, answering questions, and kind of taking us behind the scenes of how they do what they do. So in this episode, we are speaking with Alison C. Rollins. Alison, thank you so much for being here. How's your day going?
My day is going pretty well. Our internets are functioning at the moment, and
At the
I'm
moment.
so I'm well.
Good, good, good. Me too. The internet, that's truly the main thing these days. If the internet's functioning, my day's going okay. I would love, before we kind of dive in, to have you introduce yourself. Maybe name, pronouns, where you currently live, and most recent book, and anything else you want to throw in.
Of course. So my name is Alison C. Rollins. My pronouns are she, her. I was born and raised in the Midwest in St. Louis, Missouri, but I now currently reside in sunny Colorado Springs, Colorado. And my debut poetry collection with Copper Canyon Press is Library of Small Catastrophes, featuring the phenomenal visual artist Nick Cave's sound suit on the cover.
It's so beautiful. Thank you so much for having a visual up. I love that. Well, I would kind of love to just jump right in, to be honest. I I kind of want to start from the beginning almost, and I was wondering if we could kind of go back to when you started writing poetry, and I'm kind of curious as to, like, was there one thing, like one poem, one song, one character, one movie, that you kind of identified with, that kind of pushed you to write, or inspired you? Or was poetry just kind of something you kept being drawn to and kept coming back to? Or how did it begin? I'm curious.
Yeah, in the very cliche way, in the very emotional early Alison, past high school Alison, in high school, I think poems just were a way to, in a fragmented sense, get my emotions and feelings onto the page. I was always a kid that had a lot of feelings. Um, loved reading, loved kind of hermit-like existence curled up with books. And so I figured out early on that the phenomenon of the page, like the page paper, was a space where I could express myself, that was a container that could hold and kind of archive my emotional register. And it had to participate in listening to me. Like, it didn't really have a choice. And so for me, it felt very soothing and powerful to be able to engage in world building on paper, in a way that I often didn't find with peers. I was very lonely. I just didn't have a lot of friends or like other people to quite talk to. I'm the oldest of three daughters, so often I was kind of in older sister mode, which
Yeah.
didn't really. It felt like the page was a friend, a non-furry critter, but like a friend that was going to hold and listen and be supportive, like a really good paper dog. If you can.
Dog. I love that. You made your own pet.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
I wait. So then, but it came out like most people. I like, if I heard somebody saying this, I might think like diary. But you went poetry like that. So were these? So that, I don't know. I find that truly amazing. I feel like when I was taught poetry, it was like super alienating, and I
Mhm.
never found that it was anything that I could like relate to, or found interest in. So I'm curious, were you just picking up, like, how did you find yourself within poetry at such like a young age then? Like, were you just reading, were you just exposed to like really great poets from a young age? Or was it just like you didn't know you were writing poems, but looking back on it, they were actually poems? Or I'm just very curious as to
Yeah, I think more so to your experience in my formal schooling in an academic sense, I certainly didn't see poets that looked like me. I didn't read or understand of contemporary poets. I think
right,
my
right.
father gave me like Langston Hughes Collected, and that was about the most that I had in terms of even a Black poet. But I really I still to this day loved Roald Dahl's work. So like James and the Giant Peach was one of my favorites, the BFG. And maybe I just didn't have the perseverance to write short story. Like I wasn't really into writing short stories, but I loved the surreal. Like I loved the notion of there's this kid, he hangs out with like a cockroach and a beetle, they're on this peach, they're journeying around. I think James's like parents die at the zoo or something. So it was so in a fragmented way, I liked poetry because it allowed me to weave together, I think, the surreal and my own experience, like building my own type of mythology, but with brevity. Like I never kept a diary because it felt very overwhelming to me personally to have to every day.
Me too.
Documenting. So I just didn't do that. I just
Me too. I have the utmost respect for diary people because I'm like, I would be like writing down every single thing, like had a glass of milk. It was almond milk. I hated it. Like, like I would feel like I had to like go through everything. So I totally feel you on that one. I love that you kind of went to, I think of James and the Giant Peach as like a kid's story.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, maybe I think that's how others view it, but maybe not. But that's so interesting to think of. You're kind of right. Like even like Dr. Seuss or something is technically poetry. I mean, and not technically, but it almost is poetic in that rhyme and in that how it moves. And you reference like James and the Giant Peach as like surreal and kind of like wild in that imagination kind of sense. And so maybe we were all exposed to poetry from a really young age and just didn't call it that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting. I've never, maybe other people think this all the time, but that's the first time I've thought of that before.
Or if not poetry, then at least maybe imagery. That
Yeah.
there's when you become an adult or a former, an intellectual, you no longer read picture books, you no longer read aloud. But I think one of the beautiful things about poetry is the richness of imagery, of building like visual mental pictures with words. And I think those are the moments in poems that resonate or continue to kind of like ricochet through my mind and body after I've set down the poem in a way that maybe doesn't as often happen or in quite the same way as in prose.
Oh, wow. That's, yeah. Yes. 100% yes to that. Yes.
Yes. And I think also
That's
we all enjoyed that. Like we all hopefully
it.
enjoyed even children that are not quite formally literate yet, telling a story with the pictures or looking at the pictures. We all typically have a good feeling about that. And it's unfortunately when formal schooling happens that people feel really not great about poetry. Like poetry often we're taught is to make us feel insecure, or we don't understand, or
Like
we're
above
somehow
us.
lack.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's so true. Yeah, like who didn't want to be like read aloud to and like shown like like have pictures kind of tell the story in that sense. I remember when I was a kid, I picked up a book and I thought it was in English and it was in Spanish, but it was in front of the whole class and I remember I had to read. It was like in preschool or something or kindergarten, I don't know. And I just like decided to make it up because I was in front of the whole class. I was like, well, this is about, I was just like going off of what the pictures were, and but it was so fun. I remember that to this day. I was like, that was the most fun I've had reading, and I wasn't even reading. It was like, so anyway, I hear that. Well, I'm curious then if we could fast forward, or maybe it's actually at the same time. Maybe there's no fast forwarding that's going to happen, but I wonder if there's like when you started thinking of yourself as a poet. Like, did it happen when you had a book out in the world? Did it happen when you were writing that first poem as a kid? Has it just not happened yet? Like, should it happen? I don't know. I'm curious on that mindset.
Yeah, I think for me, when I was in high school and when I was in graduate school, I had two English teachers, professors who I showed my work to, which to be honest, probably was not very good at all. But I trusted them and I respected them. And so it meant something for them to validate me, or in some sense, also kind of give me permission. When they said, these are poems, or I can definitely see you're a poet, I think hearing that for me affirmed, oh, I am this thing. I'm this type of person. And as I've gotten older, I think I'm more skeptical, and often when I teach, I'm skeptical of telling students to give that power to someone else, allowing someone else to validate or give you permission. And so I think for me, it's more so, I think of poets as lifestyle choice.
No,
And
you're so right.
yeah, it's a way of like being and seeing and moving through the world, and a way of a lens, if you will, like a set of binoculars through which I examine my lived experience, and I examine the world around me and try to give language to the world around me. And so in a formal sense, I'm not going to lie, especially like as a Black queer woman, it really meant a lot to have a book, because at least that's something I can point to that is a credential, or like a professional validation.
Yeah.
So that feels good. But I think more so I like to think of it as a way of being. We'll say that.
I like that that's not what I thought you were gonna say when you were saying lifestyle. And I like your version a lot better.
Okay.
Because when I kind of thought you were gonna go towards like, you know, most poets, at least that I work with, like they have other jobs besides putting a book out. They're running around doing events, or maybe not running around now because we're on Zoom, but like, you know, putting effort into like these events. They're giving lectures, they're like doing signing, you know, like you're doing like a million things. They're editors for other journals. They're doing so, like, truly, like I do think you're right in the way that like I'm a poet. It does mean like I wear like 10,000 hats and all at once and all at the same. So, but yours sounds much more poetic, and so let's go with your version of lifestyle better. I like the lens. I like the lenses much better than the hats. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I guess speaking to that, like I'm curious, like how do you, like, being a poet, you're also a librarian. You're still correct, a librarian now?
Yeah, well, I go back and forth between either full-time librarian, full-time faculty, half librarian, half faculty, 1/4 library. Like, so right now I'm not working in the library. I'm
Okay.
a visiting assistant professor, but I'm never not a librarian in my mind.
Ooh, wait, what does that mean? Is being a librarian a mindset too? Take me through it.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Yes.
Yes.
we're,
Yes.
gonna affirm all of these things in an
Yes.
anti-capitalist way. Like we're gonna do yes. Yes. So I have again I have a master's in library and information science, which is the terminal degree to be considered a librarian. So I do have that. But for me, again, since I was a little kid, I just really enjoy collecting. I don't know what it is. I really enjoy archiving in a very just general sense, if it makes sense. Like I grew up, my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother, had Alzheimer's when I was in high school. And so it became a sort of kind of obsession or love project to just try to document as much as I could, writing on the back of photographs the names of people, writing down stories, trying to hold and preserve her legacy, her memories that were slipping away. But if it's even not just like memory based, but in terms of like objects or things, I have sort of hoarding tendencies. But I really just like ephemera. I like nostalgia. I like collecting and curating and holding things. So yeah, I think the librarian in me in that way never leaves, even if I'm not formally working in one.
I hear that. I mean, as a collector myself, I was like the kid with like a bunch of like the stamp collection, the coin
Yes,
collection,
yes.
the teeny baby, like it was a lot of it was too many collections. It was like like each corner of the room had a collection, and it was like it's too much. But it is kind of funny that neither of us wanted to do diaries, because I feel like now I actually understand why, because like we're too like it's like a collection of the day's memories, and we can't collect them all because you can never remember them all. And so now it kind of makes sense why we're not diary people. But no, I'm interested in the fact that the degree has the word science in it and not
Mhm.
art. Like that I guess that makes sense because in science you have all of those categories that you're grouping like, plants and animals and all that into. But like, did you feel, but like, is there I assume there is also like an art form behind it though. Am I wrong about that? I don't know, in terms of being a librarian.
I think so, but then that's maybe like the poetry juices seeping in. But
Well, let them seep. Let them seep.
yes, it is. Also, all of my degrees are actually in science. So, because there's a catalog, there's a formal cataloging system. There is, theory that surrounds various processes of information literacy, information circulation. So, there's also like a critical shift that happened in terms of library schools kind of turning or taking the terminology of information science schools. So it being a management type notion or science to the organization of information rather than such a library centered focus, if you will. But I think that there's so many aspects of there's politics to it, there's kind of policy to it, there is an art, I think. You're curating in a way, like you're building a collection, you're determining what's on the shelves, what you think people will want. You're also communicating, whether it's to the general public or to an educational setting, what we value as a culture, what is important,
Wow.
what it is that we think is worthy of being put into the public domain and circulated and shared and enjoyed and read and learned from. And so to me, that's a lot of cultural capital goes into that.
It's a lot of pressure. That's a lot. A lot.
Sure,
I mean, I love that though. And I mean, I guess like as a kid, I would love going to libraries for story hour and like community, like more community things. Then as I got older, it was more like to use the computer to
yeah.
print
Mhm.
something out. So like, and I'm like, are you still seeing like when you are have your library hat on? Are you still seeing like are people gathering? Are people like are story hours still like a thing? Are people still coming in to kind of like are there regulars? Like there was always regulars in my library. Like there and I don't know. I'm curious. Like what is the library physical space at least post COVID? Take COVID out of it. What is that these days? Like how do you see it?
Yeah, I think the library is one of the last shared economy spaces that we can all, for the most part, I won't say all, I shouldn't use exhaustive terms like that, but most of us agree on, right? We believe it is a public good. And so, in that sense, when I worked in public libraries, you do have the intersection of families with their small children, maybe adults that haven't been in the library in decades that are now returning with children for story hour. It's also a community space. I was really torn when I went back to graduate school to get my library science degree. I was torn between doing a social work degree because I also felt like it was a space where there's people seeking public health needs. There's people seeking just safe, climate controlled shelter. People need a space to feel safe, to have a decent temperature, to feel even sometimes using the bathrooms, public restrooms as a way to clean off, to use the restroom, to use the internet, as you mentioned, to use a computer, to apply to jobs. So it does a variety of different things for different needs, often like throughout the day in communities. People from all different types of walks of life are intersecting in this communal space. Kind of unlike any other. Like
Yeah,
it's
no, absolutely. Like
yes,
that's crazy. Like you name all those things. Like what other singular place is doing all of that? Like
exactly,
truly, I don't know. I don't know.
exactly.
That's crazy. Wow. Well, I wonder then, so your book is called Library of Small Catastrophes. I wonder if we could circle back to maybe your work and talk about kind of, so it is I mean, I think the library, the cataloging aspect is very much in your work. I'm curious if you could just talk about the book, about kind of that process a bit.
Sure, yeah. So the book is trying to catalog, if you will, trauma, I think, or I think often about the psychological text, the body keeps the score. So there's been recent movements in mental health work that suggest or understand that our body is actually recording or on a cellular level, on a physiological level, it's keeping track of the traumas that we are experiencing. And so in this collection, I tried to catalog both on the individual level, but also on the cultural, on the national level, catastrophes, if you will, and give them language in trying to make sense of them, trying to world build, to document, to bear witness to a variety of different things that have happened to me both personally, but also on a larger scale. So from the micro to the macro and back and forth. And that's what it ended up being, I suppose. Yeah.
No, it definitely ended up being that. I mean, as somebody who's read it multiple times, I can tell you that that was indeed accomplished. Um, I I like how you even brought science into what you just said too, in terms of the body, the scientific evidence of your body holding trauma and how that influences kind of how your body works or doesn't work, I guess. I never realized how much you hold both science and art so in tandem, so continuously. That's amazing. Um, well, I wonder, since we're speaking about your book, I wonder if we might end with you reading something that you've written, maybe either giving a shout out or reading something from a book that you've been loving lately. Um, does that
Sure.
sound all right?
Both
Yeah.
or
I would love if you did both. Would
sure.
that be okay?
Yeah, yeah. I'm teaching this spring a course called Black Environmental Literature at Colorado College. And I've decided that I want the class to focus on water. And so we'll be reading a variety of texts, but I just finished Sarah M. Broom's The Yellow House, which is absolutely, absolutely phenomenal. So we'll be looking at this. And I just started, and I'm 1/3 of the way through Christina Sharp's In the Wake. And this book I was reading last night, I really wanted to be a marine biologist.
Oh my God,
I
Allison.
just wanted to be like the manatees, particularly. I loved manatees. I just love marine animals, aquatic life. So I have all these books about like eels, cephalopods, so octopuses, squids, etc. And so I've been thinking a lot about water. And so I'm going to read from the book a poem called Water No Get Enemy. And this takes its title from the Nigerian musician Fela Kuti, one of his songs. And I wrote this a few days after my mom's birthday. And it was actually Dr. Seuss's, we were celebrating Dr. Seuss's birthday.
Oh my God.
My mom's birthday. And then I heard the news of an indigenous kind of natural resources activist, Berta Cáceres, who was assassinated in Honduras. And it was the night before her birthday, I believe, and she was murdered in her home, in her bed. And so I started writing this poem, which takes its opening and closing lines from Carl Phillips' work, who is a St. Louis kind of legend at this point. So I thought I would read this one. This is for Berta Cáceres, assassinated March 2016, La Esperanza, Honduras. Water no get enemy. I swam the field, her body everywhere, blue cornflowers. A dam of rocks, clattering at her feet, seashells of bullets collected from her hair. I sing the body hydroelectric. If you want to go wash, in water you go use. Blue and damned, standing at the bank of the Gualcarque River, telling it to keep her name out its mouth. The men came in the night, the coffin of a constellation on their shoulders, sky full of 5-pronged nails, dull and glimmering at the same time. Trigger fingers groped threat. Unruly eyes mirrored dark hands, soiled with terror and riddled with history's teeth. Yellow thumbnails smudged memory. The men own even the rain, even the wet body found with head full of black curls rippling like waves. No need to roll the stone away. These women don't rise on the third day, blinking in the moonlight, wrapped in invisible wire like something beautiful is gonna come. I sing the body hydroelectric. If water kill your child, and water you go use. Her flightless voice written on the sound of water running, the sound of gunshots pattering feet upstream, the blood, the last thing to come rushing, begging to be taken back home. Flag hung, the ribbon cut, her lips aboard a ship, the sky rocking her broken hips to sleep, the shore hard and unforgiving. The field lies down before us, the morning sun, a mistaken flame.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. I love the repetition in that. And yeah, just all the natural elements that they're just beautiful. Thank you so much. Really, thank you for being such a great guest. I really appreciate you being here. And thank you everybody for watching. We will see you next time. And do check out coppercanyonpress.org for all the other episodes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Allison. We'll see you soon.